Okay, so definitely we could not extrude our surface, so we have to modify. But what about if we create a function that assigns the building story but modify our space to accomplish the z coordinate, the floor height, and the ceiling height of that building story? It's going to be very useful, and it's something that could happen when you create some geometries. When I start using OpenStudio in SketchUp, usually the floor could be with some slope by a mistake when I was drawing the building, and then you find that the surface doesn't match, things like that. So this function could be very useful for our projects. But let's go to understand how we could modify our space floor and our space roof and the walls to generate that extrusion that accomplish in our building story. Let's go to call our surface in our space is equal to space1 dot surface, and remember that each surface of our list has a property name surface type. Let's say that could be floor, that could be roof ceiling, or that could be wall. So now our surface 5 is our roof ceiling. So let's go to call the vertex of our roof, vertex roof equals to surface 5 dot vertex. Now, what is the problem here? If you use type vertex roof, you could notice that it's a tuple type. This means that you could not modify the items of that object. So we're gonna need to create our new vertex and reassign to our space in order to change. Let's going to create a method for that. It's going to name def modify horizontal surface, and it's going to use a surface of OpenStudio and a z value that we're going to use to change. And it's going to say if it was successful or not our change by using a boolean. Vertex r equals as the surface vertex, and let's going to create a list with our new vertices. Now for each vertex in our vertex, new vertex, append OpenStudio point 3D. Now the vertex x keeps equals, the vertex y also, but the vertex z is going to be changed by the z value, and we're going to use that return surface dot set vertex as tuple the new vertices list. Now we could say modify horizontal surface. We're going to use surfaces 5 dot 6 and return true. So it was successful. Let's going to reopen our OpenStudio model. Let's going to save our model again. And if we open our model in OpenStudio application, we're going to find out that our roof was changed of position 6, but our walls remains equals. So it's necessary to change every wall to accomplish this new height. But remember that the coordinates of our wall has one that is the floor ones, 0 with z coordinate 0, and the other ones with the roof coordinate that we're going to change. So how could we find out which vertex we're going to change and which one not? Well, there are many ways to do this. I recommend to establish a margin, because we could have, as I mentioned, a floor with a slope. So if we have another geometry that we'd like to check with this function is going to be useful, that be more generic for assign the levels of the floor and the roof in our walls. So what we're going to do, we're going to find out a midpoint between the z position of our vertex and all the vertex that has a z value above the midpoint is going to be assigned as the roof vertex, and the other one are going to be assigned as the floor vertex. So this method is gonna be private. So we're going to use underscore get z send, and it's going to use the vertex of our surface and return a float value. So we're gonna make a sum of all our vertex z value starting by 0, and for each vertex in vertex we're going to sum the value of our vertex coordinates and return the result divided by the quantity of vertices. So it's going to use the length of vertices. So let's going to find out a wall. You could use surfaces. One dot surface type is a wall, and if we use get z send of surface 1 dot vertex is 1.5. So if the vertex is, for example, 3, then it's going to be assigned as roof, and is 0 is going to be assigned as floor. So let's create our method to modify our walls. To use def modify vertical surface, and we're going to need now the surface, that is an OpenStudio model geometry surface. Is necessary the z-floor coordinate that is going to be modified, the z-roof, and return again a boolean of successful. So let's going to call our vertex equals surface vertex. Now let's going to find our z midpoint, that is equal to get z send of our vertex. Now create a new list of our new vertices equals, now for vertex in vertex, if vertex c is greater than c midpoint, then the new vertex append is going to be a new point 3D with the same coordinate x and y, but changed by the z-roof value. Else is going to be a point 3D, the same x and y vertex coordinate, but with the floor value, and return a surface set vertex tuple new vertex. Now we're going to modify our wall. So for surface, in surfaces, if surface dot surface type is equals as wall, then modify vertical surface each surface, and the value is gonna be 0 for floor and 6 for roof. And let's going to save and check in our OpenStudio application. And that's all. Now we have extruded artificially our stairs to accomplish the building story of 0 and 6.